Ezekiel wasn't the first man to see God's glory cloud. The Lord had descended on Sinai in a storm cloud, Exodus 24:16. When Moses finished the tabernacle, the cloud moved from the mountain to the most holy place, resting above the wings of the cherubim on the ark. Later, the same glory filled Solomon's temple, consecrating the Lord's house. 1 Kings 8:11. The priests and elders on Sinai peered up through a sapphire pavement to see the God of Israel, and Moses got to enter the cloud. From a distance, Ezekiel sees what Israel saw, a storm wind and a great cloud flashing with lightning and fire. Even from a distance, he sees something like glowing metal in the midst of the fire, Ezekiel 1:4-10. As the cloud approaches, he sees what's inside, living beings, later identified as cherubim. They have a human form, but with bronze legs and hooved feet and 4 wings. Each cherub has 4 faces: the face of a bull, a lion, an eagle, and a man. These faces always face the same direction, Ezekiel 1:12, and we know which direction. The cloud comes from the north, Ezekiel 1:4, and the face at the front is the face of a man. That means the man faces south. To the right of the man face is the lion face, facing west, and to the left is the bull face, turned east. That means the eagle face must be facing back to the north, toward the Lord's throne at the pole of the sphere of heaven, Psalm 48:2. Ezekiel's directional indications may seem extraneous, but they hint at connections with other 4 corner arrangements in the Bible. When Israel camped in the wilderness, the 12 tribes were divided into 4 groups, with 3 turned toward each of the 4 cardinal directions. Numbers 2. The tabernacle was at the center of the camp, with furnishings at each point of the compass. The bronze altar in the courtyard to the east, the ark in the far west, the table of showbread on the north wall of the holy place, and the lampstand on the south wall. We may be tempted to think that David plus 3 mighty men form a human replica of the glory, and then we might recall that Jesus, the son of David, also has his 3, Peter, James, and John. The parallels among these different structures are suggestive. God's original glory includes 4-faced cherubim, each face turned in a unique direction. But God's glory also appears as a 4-cornered sanctuary, as the 4-faced nation of Israel, as a 4-man royal entourage. We might conclude that Israel is a cherubic nation called to stand watch at the house of God, just as cherubim were stationed at the gate of Eden. Genesis 3:24. We might surmise that David and his men are glory in human form. Beside each of the living creatures is a wheel of sparkling beryl, wheels that move at the direction of the living creatures, since the spirit of the living beings was in the wheels, Ezekiel 1:21. The famous phrase, wheels within wheels, is tantalizingly vague. Perhaps it means that the wheels were spheres that could change direction without being turned. The key point, though, is the wheels themselves, which indicate that this cloud is also a chariot. God's chariot that was usually parked in the most holy place of the temple, 1 Chronicles 28:18. Together, the creatures and wheels form God's mobile palanquin. Above the heads of the cherubim is an expanse, a firmament gleaming like ice, Ezekiel 1:22, and above the expanse, Ezekiel sees a lapis lazuli throne occupied by a figure like a man made of fire and metal, Ezekiel 1:26-27. This is the heart of the vision. The cherubim and wheels and the expanse are only mechanisms to move the enthroned one from place to place. At the center of the vision is God himself, appearing as a glorified man to the prophet by the river Chebar. Altogether, the glory is a microcosm. Below, toward earth, are 4 living creatures that represent the main categories of land and sky creatures: wild animals, domesticated cattle, birds, and men. Above these is a firmament, like the expanse of the sky, and above the sky is God's throne. The chariot is the original glory of God, and the world itself is modeled after the pattern of this glory. There is a thread of Jewish mysticism based on Ezekiel's chariot or Merkabah. It's thought that Ezekiel describes a path of ascent into heavenly places to the throne of God. In Ezekiel, though the movement is the opposite. Instead of an ascent, he sees a descent, the original living throne of Yahweh moving from heaven to earth. The chariot can rise from the earth, Ezekiel 1:19, but the wheels are on the earth, Ezekiel 1:15. The chariot isn't in the first instance a means of mystical ascent. It's medium for divine descent. It doesn't take Ezekiel up to heaven. It brings heaven to earth. We can get so caught up in the strange details of Ezekiel's vision that we miss the concrete setting. Ezekiel sees the glory Moses and Solomon saw, but Ezekiel doesn't seize it on Sinai, at Shiloh, or in Jerusalem. When Ezekiel sees the vision in the 5th year of Jehoiachin's exile, Ezekiel 1:2, the temple is still standing in Jerusalem, Ezekiel 33:21-22. Yet the glory isn't in the temple. It's with the exiles in Babylon who gather by the river Chebar. Something like this has happened before. When the Philistines destroyed the tabernacle at Shiloh, they took God's ark back home as a war trophy, where God made war on Israel's enemies, 1 Samuel 4:6. It happens again in Ezekiel's time. God's departure from the temple is a judgment on Judah, but it's also an act of compassion. When God sends Israel into exile, he packs up and heads into exile with them. He enters Babylonian territory riding on his war chariot on the wings of the cherubim. To get the full effect of the vision, we need to see that Ezekiel 1 is only the first of a 3-chapter sequence, during which Ezekiel is commissioned as a prophet. When Ezekiel sees the vision, he falls like a dead man, Ezekiel 1:28. A voice from the throne revives him, Ezekiel 2:1. The Spirit enters him. He eats a book, and then he's sent out to speak the words of God and stand as a watchman over the house of Israel, Ezekiel 3:16-20. Like Isaiah's vision of glory, Isaiah 6, Ezekiel's is part of his ordination as prophet. It's a fitting prelude to a prophetic commission. A prophet is someone with access to God's judgment hall and his divine counsel. Jeremiah 23:18. Ezekiel glimpses the interior of the throne room because God is about to invite him to take his place among the living creatures. The heavens opened, Ezekiel tells us, Ezekiel 1. It's a remarkable, rare occurrence in Scripture. In the Old Testament, the heavens typically open so God can rain his blessings on Israel. But the heavens opened to welcome Ezekiel, the Son of Man. And centuries later, the heavens split open. Again, as another prophet, another Son of Man is commissioned at the age of 30 to see visions of God, Luke 3:21. Jesus is the prophet, but he's more than a prophet. He's both commissioned prophet and commissioning glory, both Son of Man and the fiery one who sits on God's throne in the midst of the living creatures. He's the living chariot of God, come from heaven to live among exiles, his face shining with the light of God's glory. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for our latest video updates.